it was difficult during the takeaway period because you put everything into that food and you see it being delivered away in a bag, and you kind of miss that little bit of a connection of them enjoying it, around a table.
This week on Dirty Linen, we are talking about the future, but the present really sets the future up. And we've had some good news in Victoria this week, especially for regional Victoria. But I have to say that even here in Melbourne, I do feel buoyed by the news that restaurants in regional Victoria are able to open in limited capacity this week. Sonia Anthony runs Masons of Bendigo, a really lovely restaurant. It's a destination restaurant. People come there from the city. Indeed, I've done so myself, but it's also very well supported by Bendigo locals who seem to love their food. Sonia is a big part of the Central Victorian food community. She knows everything that's going on and everything that's good to eat, and an amazing supporter of local producers. Sonia, I'm really happy to be chatting to you. Thanks for coming on to Dirty Linen.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Tell me how you're feeling today.
Oh, amazing. It's there's just so much positive energy, and it's incredible how quickly things turn around, and once your head stops spinning with all of the new information, it's just all full steam ahead, and we're super excited at Team Masons, absolutely.
That's so good. So tell me, bring us up to date with what you are allowed to do as of Thursday.
So for regional Victorians, we are actually allowed to accommodate some dine-in. So depending on what your restaurant spacing is, we can have up to 10 people in one space. We're fortunate we've got downstairs and upstairs, so we can have up to 20 people, which, sounds ridiculously low, but when you've had nobody for such a long time, it's so exciting to be able to offer that. For those venues that have outdoor dining, they're able to have up to 50 people, depending on what their size spacing is like. And we're fortunate here in Bendigo that our city has been really proactive in engaging with the hospitality community in helping support those venues that do want to increase their seating capacity outside. I guess we're super lucky that we have some fantastic weather here in Bendigo, so it's a really great opportunity for people to be able to support their hospitality venues, but also enjoy some much needed sunshine.
So you're going to have some outdoor dining?
Not at the moment. The space right out the front of ours isn't that comfortable for outdoor dining. We actually converted our outdoor space into a wicking bed. We felt that the concrete needed a little bit of greenery to soften it up a little bit. And I guess that's the challenge with being in the CBD. So, we're grateful for what we can do in-house at the moment, and we'll work with that.
I mean, it's such, as you say, the information uh, is there's a lot to digest, and it's been like that for 6 months. There's been so much, so many cascading announcements, and you've had to, look over that shoulder, look over this shoulder, do a 360, and then, stand on your hands for a while. Like, it's been a lot to take in until the announcement this week. It seemed as though indoor dining was not going to be part of the picture. Talk us through your headspace, like how you were thinking about things, and how you've processed the new information.
Yeah. Well, I guess we've become a lot better at opening up opportunities and looking at different scenarios. And we're, as you mentioned in the opening, we've got amazing support from our community, and we actually had quite a few people approach us with outdoor dining options, which was just overwhelming really for us. So there were conversations that we had with a number of places quite loosely, because we do know that details and requirements and restrictions change at a moment's notice. So it was really just connecting with people and having the conversation and just sort of milling things around in our minds in how things could look and how things could work, and just really keeping the idea of it being fun at the forefront. And that was really part of what our Masons at Home option and our pop-up bakery were over the last few weeks, that, you know, it can all become quite overwhelming and, bring people down. And we just wanted to make sure that we looked at it through a really positive lens. And it's like, well, how can we make the best out of this situation and connect with our customers and all those lovely people that have been missing us, to keep us going, through some positive mental health messages. And I think, if nothing else, you really see how your community responds and reacts when you've got something so extreme happening around you.
Yeah. I mean, it's really heartening and impressive to hear you say that fun is the thing that you're trying to put at the forefront, because pandemic isn't really essentially fun when you get down to it, but it is. I guess customers, your diners, are still looking to restaurants to create those hospitality experiences. So it's interesting that that you still feel like you want to deliver a mood, not just the food.
Absolutely, and that's part of what our ethos has been at Masons, from the get go, and that connection to people and that connection to our community, and that underlying thing of what hospitality is. It's making people feel happy, it's making people feel good, and if that's through food or connecting or experiences, that's really what makes us feel whole. And it was difficult during the takeaway period because you put everything into that food and you see it being delivered away in a bag, and you kind of miss that little bit of a connection of them enjoying it, around a table. And I guess social media really helped with that. People were sending through photos and things like that. But that interperson connection was really missed, and we're really looking forward to that again.
Yeah. Well, tell me, when you were able to reopen mid-year for a period, tell me about that feeling of welcoming diners back into the restaurant.
Yeah, so I guess each sort of stage has had its own challenges. Um, you know, Initially when we were first forced to close, we didn't open, so we were closed for quite a period of time. And people were just really grateful that we were able to reopen, and just sharing their feelings of gratitude was overwhelming. But also, having all of those extra layers of what we needed to do to make sure that our staff and everyone was kept safe, was not challenging, but I guess it's just another thing that you have to put into your processes and what happens on a daily basis. And each time there's a reopening, there's a whole nother layer of that goes on top of it. And you sort of look back and think, wow, we thought that was such a big deal back then, but look at where we are now and the challenges that we face. And you kind of think, well, you know, how much longer, you're climbing this steep precipice of, challenges. We've got to get to the top eventually. And I think, with all challenges in life, you kind of get to a point where you think, I just can't do this anymore, but you keep going. And then all of a sudden it all just falls into place. And I'm just really hoping that sort of plays out for hospitality, in this regard, that we all kind of get out of this with so many lessons and so many positives, that what will be on the other side will be truly amazing.
I mean, when you talk about lessons, I guess you're also you're talking what you're talking about is there's resilience that you're expressing, like the importance of just keeping going. What are some of the other lessons that you think you'll be able to take forward?
Um, I think, so many. I think, hospitality is all about giving, but also learning that lesson of receiving, and that's been a really, really big learning for us over the last few months, that, you know, that's okay, and embrace that and really appreciate that. So that's been a really, really big one. And I think just reassessing where you are and what it is that's around you. And I guess that's more in terms of where I sit with my hat with the farmers market, and that process of you know, seeing our producers in great distress because you know, overnight their income had reduced to nothing, and they'd spent years and months growing all this amazing produce and it had nowhere to go, and how farmers markets really turn that around for people. And that connection, that overlaying connection of, rather than the restaurant being the conduit between the grower and the eater, it became that direct connection. And, you know, that's a really big lesson I think everybody's learning this time around.
Yeah, I think people have definitely had cause to think about where their food comes from more than perhaps they have in the past. And yeah, I think it hopefully helps people value the local producers that are around them, and to think about the way that food, yeah, gets to them, whether it is by a restaurant or through a market or through a shop, or indeed directly. Do you want to just explain your role at the farmers market for people?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the president of the Bendigo Community Farmers Market, and I also do the marketing and socials. So during the first lockdown period, we faced shutdown, closure. The city weren't comfortable with us operating in a public space. They felt that there may have been, you know, too many people within one area, which is completely understandable. But our market manager and I had less than 24 hours to turn a market around. And, you know, just as many others have in this period, we did what we could, and we popped up in a few places. And so our mini pop-up market started with 3 stall holders, and now we operate a weekly market at the Good Loaf every Thursday, and it's become increasingly popular, and our community are just so grateful for that weekly access. And I just don't think that would have happened so quickly without a pandemic. So there's another positive in there.
Tell us about the process of reopening a restaurant. It's, you know, we hear from restaurateurs a lot that, you know, it's they need notice to be able to open. It's not just a matter of turning on the lights and opening the doors. What do you actually have to do?
Um, yeah, and we keep requesting notice, but hopefully by the end of it, the government will get a little bit better on that front, because there is quite a lot to do. And I guess for us, we've got, you know, some amazing people around us who have some incredible skills. So everybody kind of gets on with what they need to do, and we can see that things turn around quite quickly. So you know, with our front of house team and our kitchen team, we've found now that you know, we can do things a lot more, not streamlined, but I guess we just kind of get on with it. You know, it's not a matter of doing too much planning. We've got menus in place. The beauty of working directly with producers is, you know, it's just a phone call away, and we can work out what's available and what's not available. It's the same with our beverages. We work directly with winemakers and beer and cider makers, and so you can get on the phone quite quickly and get things turned around. So we're pretty lucky in that sense.
One thing that I've been wondering about is staff getting back up to speed with the rhythms of restaurants, and that it, as far there's, of course, there's the processes and the procedures and the taking customer details and the wiping tables and all the COVID safe things. But I think, don't you think it's going to be quite a challenge for staff and for the people that manage them to just get people back into the mode of working in busy restaurants?
Yeah, I think that's why it was really important for us to stay open this time, and why we developed the Masons at Home and bakery, just to keep our team um, working in the space, connecting with each other, and just kind of creating a little bit of normality within our little restaurant bubble, I guess you could call it. Because we just found that first time round we were closed, it was really getting to a point where all of us were finding it hard to get motivated and just switch into the right mode. And it did take a little while when we first reopened to get our groove back. So I can really see a big difference this time around in terms of our energies and just being in that zone. And for us, it was just super important to keep our staff on JobKeeper and keep the team together and just really work through it as a team. And I think that's been a really good thing for everybody.
Mm. I wonder if diners are going to be rusty as well, like if people will have forgotten how to be in restaurants. And I know, there's going to be new things for diners as well. There'll be masks. There are time limits on how long you can be in a restaurant. People can't stand up to order. There's all those kinds of, I guess, rules based things that people have to get used to. But I think also, you know, uh, are we going to have to relearn how to dine out?
I guess if there's ever a time you could get away with it, it's when there's only 10 people in a really large restaurant. So you're pretty guaranteed that no one will be watching. But you're right, it is all a relearning for everybody. And we're just trying to make sure that we communicate as much as we can to our diners before they come in. And we found that a really valuable thing to do the first time round. So, we don't want confrontation, we don't want frustrated people. We just want people to come in and have a really good time. So, yeah, hopefully there won't be too many too many people not knowing what to do. And if not, I'm sure that they'll figure it out pretty quickly.
Yeah, I was chatting to a restaurateur in New York earlier in the week, and they're only able to do outdoor dining there. So he's set up his backyard as a dining space, and he said that customers, not all of them, but a few customers were complaining a lot about the mosquitoes, and he was just almost at his wits' end. It's like, you know, there are things that can be controlled and there are things that can't be controlled. And um, I think I think as diners, we're going to be so excited to be back in restaurants. I really hope that translates to gratitude and understanding about the things that staff are able to manage and the things that they're not. I guess I really feel like we've got to all be working together to get restaurants back on their feet, busy, and something that we all treasure as Victorians.
I agree. And I think those small things will just become so insignificant. And of course, there are always people who will have an issue with something. And, it's like anything. You just really want to focus on the 99% of people who are having an amazing experience and love what you do and don't mind a mozzie or two, rather than that 1%, where you just can't control certain things. And it's the same with the, the restrictions and the requirements. We're required to check everybody's ID when they first come in. And it's like, well, that's not, our doing. This is what we're required to do, and we just hope that you'll respect that. And then everyone can just get on with having a really good time. And that's all we really want at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And you spoke about the producers and how hard it's been for them, and some of the work you've been able to do to keep their businesses going. How do you think they're going? Like, how do you think some of these great small producers are going to come out the other side of this?
Oh, look, I've never met a more resilient bunch of people, and I've never met a more positive group of people who just work under the most extreme circumstances, whether that be, a 10-year drought, flooding, what other natural phenomenon can you think of? Frost, bushfires, you name it, and then throw in a pandemic, and they're still getting on with it, and they're still changing their business models to suit the environment and customer demand. And I've just got I'm just people need to learn from these people, because the way their resilience and the way they get on with it is just incredible. And you look at all the farm gate shops that are now popping up, and for example, you've got Belinda and Jason at McIver Farm in Toorak, and they've got a butchery that they've set up, and there was a space there, and Lancefield Farmers Market was cancelled at a moment's notice. And next thing they've done a pop-up little market to support not only themselves, but other meat producers that were going to that market. So, you've got all of this awesomeness.
Incredible.
It's just amazing, because you kind of think, how many knocks can they deal with? And they just keep getting on with it. And I think that's another message that we need to get through to people, that, producing food for the community is bloody hard work, and it needs to be valued, and we need to value the cost, and we need to value the price of what we pay for good food, and support these people, because they're our future, and that's the food we're putting on our plates 3 times a day. So, if nothing else, it's the producers we need to support, because without food, there's not much happening at restaurants.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, price has been a big conversation through the pandemic, and when people think about reopening, that perhaps it is an opportunity to reset and to price food fairly. Of course, at the same time, we have a lot of people in our community who have less disposable income than they had previously. How do you think that we can balance those two things when we have, difficulty throughout our society, throughout our community, but of course we need to value the people who are producing our food?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I guess for me, when that sort of conversation always comes up, I always ask the question of why, not why farmers markets are so expensive, but why other food outlets are so cheap, and how we got to that, and who is it along the line that's missing out. Because if you look at the true value of food and what it costs, why are there these really cheap alternatives? It doesn't make any sense to me. And so I think that conversation is a really important one. But I think also the other element to a food community is looking at food relief. And at the moment, we're organising to build Bendigo's food hub, and that will support not only the farmers market, but also Bendigo Food Share, which is our Central Victorian food relief agency. And we're just seeing such a massive demand for food relief at the moment, and it's a conversation of, well, how do we turn this around to help people within our community to be able to support themselves and feed themselves. So, yeah, it's I think nothing you can solve overnight. This is really something that is a continual challenge, and something we all really need to keep working toward, helping people be a lot more self-sustainable.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it's got to do with our our preponderance to sink into short-term thinking. And I think it's that way. It's when you talk about cheap food, I think what often you're really saying is that the can is just kicked further down the road, and the cost is elsewhere. So the cost might be in animal welfare, or the cost is in soil degradation, the cost is in climate change. So I think it's part of, I think what we need to do is have a really massive shift in mindset, and start to think about cost as not simply the money that comes out of our pocket in the moment, but the cost that is transferred down to, to whether it's to the producer or to the environment or wherever it is. And it would definitely be easier to have those conversations and talk about the distribution of those various costs along a timeline and a continuum if there was better leadership at a federal level in terms of climate change. So that's not really a question. That's just a little jump on a soapbox for a minute. But do you have any comment on that?
No, I completely agree. And I think, the city did a survey last year, a study, I should say, sorry, and it was found that for every $100 that you spend locally, directly at an independent shop, or whether it was at a producer's at a farmer's market, 75 of those dollars stays within your community. So creating localized food systems and building community gardens and all of those things that happen on a local level are ways in which we can actually help build resilience. And, for me, I'm a really impatient person. So, when you're talking federal government and change, I just see that as being a slow glacial movement into the future where I want things done yesterday. So I guess that's why I get so connected in with what's happening locally, because I feel like I can make more of a positive change on the ground level, and helping my community. So, and maybe that's a little bit, selfish on my behalf, because, that makes me feel really, really good. But I guess, I'm quite happy to keep the politics for somebody else to have the conversation.
Well, I think selfish is definitely not a word that is able to be applied to anything that you're doing, Sonia. It's definitely, layered good for the community, and I suppose it's that radiating thing. And I mean, farmers understand that so well, that you look after the soil and the little things, and you create, you provide the opportunity for other things to grow and thrive. So I would certainly say that that's what you're doing. Um, so you're opening your restaurant this week, are you?
We're opening next Wednesday night. So
Amazing.
yeah, we probably, no, we couldn't have, what am I saying? We've sold out our Masons at home this week. So we're really focusing on getting that together as one last hurrah for people at home. And there are quite a few people who still can't go out and about anyway. So that's a really nice thing for them to be able to experience. And of course, our last pop-up bakery on Saturday. And then it's all steam ahead with in-house dining. Prep starts Tuesday, and yeah, we reopen Wednesday night. And you kind of think, well, that's a massive undertaking, but we need to constantly reminding ourselves that we can only have 10 people in a space at one time. So, you you really have to pull yourself back from the early days of, doing over 100 covers a night. It's, your levels have dropped dramatically.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, but I'm sure you're going to put as much energy and heart into it. If it was, every seat taken and you were turning tables a couple of times a night, would you think it'll be the same excitement and the same emotion?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's the opportunity to be able to further, enhance our experience of what we provide in terms of not just the food, but the service, and, looking at our beverage menu, and being able to, have that extra time to be more creative with things, and look at things, and see how we can do things a little bit different and a little bit better, and continually try and surprise people when they come in. And, these are the opportunities that we have now. Whereas before, you're kind of on this treadmill of like, yep, let's keep this going. This momentum's great, but, there's not that much of a window of opportunity for that exploration. So we've got that now. And I guess you just have to take those opportunities while you can.
Wow, Sonia, I'm actually really jealous of the people that get to come and dine with you next week, because they're going to just have such a good time. They're going to have everything thrown at them, and they are so lucky. So, yeah. Um, it will not be long I trust that Melbourne is able to follow in regional Victoria's footsteps. So you are the beacon out in front of us, Sonia. So enjoy reopening. I wish you all the very best with it. And yeah, I just cannot wait to hear how happy you make your diners. Thank you so much for having a chat today.
Thanks so much for having me.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about. We spend a week thrashing around each issue, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.